let's get into it. So here's one thing you might not know. If you have a CX2510, which is what I have, a CK2610, or a CK2620, you actually have a 35 horsepower tractor. Right here is the serial number on the tractor, 3A165. That is the 35 horsepower engine. Now, the CX2510, the CK2610, and the CK2620 all share that 3A165 engine. The difference is on the 35 horsepower tractors, it has all the emissions on it. The three tractors that I just named are 25 horsepower and under, and they don't have the emissions. Now, if you want to turn this tractor back up to 35 horsepower, you got to do two things. This has mechanical fuel screw on it right here. There's a cap on it. That's the fuel screw, and it's on there. You have to cut this cap off, and there's your screw. It controls how much the rack can go up and down, how much fuel it gets. Cut this off, and you turn the screw in and out, and that's how you change the fuel. And also on the injection pump right here, you got to take this whole injection pump off and remove two shims, and then you're back at 35 horsepower. Or what I'm going to do in the future, I'm going to cut this cap off and just turn the fuel up and probably get it to around 30 horsepower or so. So that'll be a video I'm going to do in the future. Now, although these three tractors have the same base engine, they're dressed a little bit different. The CX2510, you'll see, has the fuel filter at the rear of the tractor. The CK series have the fuel filter under the hood here. And the different models, they may have a different size alternator, small little things like that, but the base engine is the 35 horsepower 3A165 engine. So the first thing I'm going to do is take all these bolts out and put Loctite in them, because about every half a tank of fuel, these things, yeah, that one's loose. Yeah, that one's loose. That one's tight. But about every tank, half a tank of gas, those stupid things vibrate out.
Clean bolt threads before applying Loctite. Grease fitting locations.
Oh my goodness. It's not even tight. It's completely loose. Look at that. It's a wonder that thing ain't leaking. Both sides were extremely loose. Now my axle's dry. I don't have no leaking anywhere, but I've seen some people online that have a leak at the seal, and they fill this thing with hydraulic fluid from the factory, which is really thin, and the oil we're putting in it's a lot thicker. And I've seen some people online that had an issue with a seal leaking out, and all they did was, about done draining now, all they did was change it out to that thicker fluid whenever they done the maintenance on it, and that leak went away. So if you've got a little teeny tiny leak with a little bit of, you see some like a wet spot, some dust sticking to it, you might want to just change your fluid and see if that fixes the problem before you spend all the money and time to tear this thing down and replace the seal. Alright, we got our new filter. There's the bowl and the filter. We're going to turn the fuel off. It's pretty stiff. We'll loosen this collar here. Be careful not to drop any fuel, because we're going to refill the bowl. Okay. Pull that filter down, off out of there. Now, we're going to pull the old filter out. Keep as much fuel in this bowl as you can, that way you don't have to bleed any air out of the fuel system. Set that to the side. Now the cap goes down, hole goes up. Get our new filter, hole goes up, cap goes down. Put our new filter in here, let it soak up that fuel. Then we're going to put it up in here, back on that shaft. Make sure it gets on there snug. Then put the collar and the bowl back in here. Careful with that O-ring. I'm going to try and clean some of this. That way when we turn the fuel back on, I'll be able to see if it's leaking anywhere. And just turn the fuel back on. And keep an eye on it, make sure you don't have any leaks. Alright, on to the air filter. So you got snap here, and then just give it a good twist. Pops right off, like so. There's your filter. Give it a nice little wiggle. Comes right out. Got the new filter. You can see they spray that silicone spray. It's kind of like a wax, kind of like a grease, very light, and it helps it seal and slide on there. Air filter is the easiest one out of the bunch. So get it on there and give it a spin. Make sure it's on there. Put the cap back on it. You can see these little tabs hook on there, hook on there. Then when you pull it, it pulls it tight. You can see. There we go. Make sure that's on there tight. Air filter's done. Go. That's one. That's two over here. Oil doesn't look terrible. It's not as black as I thought it'd be for diesel oil. There we go. Oh, that thing's pretty tight. Very tight. Really tight. Yeah. Well, I didn't want this thing coming off. Watch this, Bennett. All the oil's gonna come out of it.
Watch this. Stay right there.
See? The engine oil. This right here filters the oil. Alright, make sure the old gasket is still on the oil filter. Here's your new gasket. Make sure you don't double them up. Get some oil. Rub it on the new filter.
Daddy, I'm gonna put my crank right here.
Hand tight. And then go about another half turn.
That one time. Make it 3 times tight out. It's kind of like a hammer too.
That's good.
Hey, and it don't have a flat tire. Can you lift the water?
You want more water?
I'll go with it. Absolutely. Shake it.
Alright, engine oil, filling it up. A lot of people put oil in right there and you gotta have 13 funnels to get to it. But it's a lot easier if you put it in right there, that orange cap. That's where the oil goes in. Alright, so you just take this cap off and that's where we're putting the oil in. Right there. Just like that. Flexible funnel, makes it really easy.
1.53 gallons of 15W40.
Big what?
So this key handle.
I've got the dipstick. Well, I didn't pop the dipstick and let it air get in there.
Wait for me when I first.
You thought it would stay in one spot.
Gallon number 2. So we're going to use about half this gallon. Alright, let's see what we got here. So there's your low and high marks. And I always like to put a magnet on the filter to help capture any medical particles. Got one there, got one on the hydrostat. Now here's another tip. Part of your routine maintenance is making sure all your bolts everywhere are tight. Now to help you do this, you get a paint marker, oil-based acrylic paint, and put a mark on the bolt head and the piece of metal behind it. And it's an easy visual aid. Just by looking at it, you can tell if any of the bolts are loose. And I've done this on the frame, on the loader, everywhere. Super easy, super quick. Makes it a lot easier to see if anything's loose. Just put a line. And if you do this on all the bolts, it makes it way easier to check if anything's loose. So the fluid, you have to do it at 50 hours, and you don't really need to do it until 300 hours. My tractor's got 200, I'm just going to go ahead and do that and replace the hydrostat and the transmission filters. Got the mobile 5 gallons of 424, and here's our hydrostat filter, and under the tractor, that big black one right here is the transmission filter. And our book shows us how to do it here. And also transmission fluid, we're going to be filling it up with 5.41 gallons. That's only 5 gallons, so I'm going to save, I may have to save some of the old fluid, maybe like half a gallon. Now since the fluid is kind of expensive and you don't need to change it as often, if you're just changing your filters and don't want to lose a lot of fluid, you put a shop vac. Put you a shop vac right here, take the cap off. This is the fill cap. Put a shop vac in there, duct tape it to where it kind of makes an airtight seal. Turn your shop vac on, and when you loosen these filters, it's going to suck in air and not leak out as much. I'll put a video up right now.
And I've got a shop vac running up onto the fill port, which I'm going to turn on before I remove this filter. Your shop vac here. Run the hose up through.
And that's how you can do that. I'm going to go ahead and change the filters and the fluid though. Here's our drain plugs on the back. You got a couple there. Now there's the front of the tractor. You come back. There's one more plug right there on the drain. There's our big one and the two back there. Alright, so here we go. We got a drain here, and here. And here's my clean pan that I'm going to try and capture some fluid in to reuse. I only have 5 gallons and it says it takes 5.5 to fill it back up. It's 14 millimeter. I'm doing this little small hole, that way I can, when this thing fills up, I can just throw the bolt back in it real quick. Not make too much of a mess. I think that's about it. We'll cap this back off. That way we can swap out the bucket and save this good stuff. And there's that side. Let's try to get this big one here. Oh yeah, it's super loose as well. There we go. So this is the big plug. It's got a magnet on it. See a little bit of metal film on there. Not bad at all for the amount of hours. That's why I like to use those magnets on all the filters. I'm sure I'd have a lot more of this metal shavings mud if I didn't have those magnets on the filters. Alright, I got the plugs out draining. Now let's go ahead and remove the transmission filter. Wasn't on there too bad. Always make sure your gasket isn't stuck and left behind. It's still on the old filter. So get you some fluid on your finger. Rub it on that new seal. Put it back on here. Easy peasy. Just snug it up with your hands and then a little bit more with a wrench. I think that's good. Now I'm going to go ahead and put my drain plugs back in. This is the big one with that magnet on it, and there is a washer here. You can see. Put our big one back on. I'm just using a big adjustable wrench to tighten it. These little guys. All right, so here's our hydrostat filter. We're gonna throw a towel down in case it drips oil everywhere. There we go. Okay, make sure the gasket is on the old filter and not stuck in there. It looks nice and clean. So we're going to take some old oil, put it on the O-ring, and put this thing back in here. And we'll just tighten it up. And there we go, that's done. Alright, I got the funnel clamped to the joystick lever to help hold it here, flexible down here. I'll go ahead and throw in my 5 gallons here. Probably gonna make a mess. Try not to. I think it's working out good. I'm gonna drill a vent hole top of that bucket so it comes out easier. All right, let's try this again. I drilled a vent hole top of the bucket. Should pour a lot easier now. Oh yeah, it's way better. And this flexible funnel working out pretty good. Takes 5.5 gallons. I'm gonna put this whole 5 gallons in, then we'll see where the dipstick is, see if we need to add any more or not. 5 gallons in. Okay, so according to the manual, we are going to fill it to the upper line of the gauge. So right there on the top and right there. Do not operate the tractor immediately after changing the transmission fluid. Run the engine at medium speed for a few minutes to prevent damage to the transmission. So I haven't cranked the tractor or anything. I'm just going to see where it's at real quick. Oh, it's way up here. It's way overfilled. That's because it's not in the new filter yet. So we'll go ahead and crank it, let it run a minute like it said, and then we'll recheck it. So I cranked the tractor and you heard it like cavitating, and I like jumped up and turned the key off. I think what it was idled down too low, and the pump wasn't going fast enough to pull all the air out of it, and it's like cavitating. And it even says in the manual, run the engine at medium speed for a few minutes. And I had it turned down all the way, so I just re-cranked it, idled it up some, and then it blew all the air out of the system, so it's good now. All right, we let it run a few minutes, and then I started using the loader valve, and when I used the loader valve, it done that cavitation for like half a second and moved it back and forth, up and down. Then I put it in forward and reverse and gave it a little bit of gas each way to get all the air bubbles worked out of the system, and then it smoothed it out. So we're going to check the fluid now. See what it's like with exactly 5 gallons put in. Oh, it is exactly to the tip top of the top mark. See if I can get it to focus. You can't see it, but it is exactly at the top mark. So exactly 5 gallons, done it perfectly. I guess that other half gallon was just stuff left in the lines and everything else. Another thing on the service is you're checking your fan belt right here. Mine's good, and you just adjust it with this bolt right here. This thing just slides back and forth. All right, on to the paint. Nobody likes a faded out tractor, especially if you keep it outside. I'll be putting on some ceramic coating. This isn't the cheap watered down spray stuff. This is actual ceramic coating. A little goes a long way. That little bottle right there probably do a crew cab truck 2 or 3 times over, but it comes with microfiber, gloves, instructions, some lint-free wipes. I'll go ahead and show you how good this stuff is. Okay, so there's the applicator. Just a couple drops of this stuff goes a long ways, and you can put this on the paint, on the trim, everything. So you can see I got a scratch right there going down from brush. Literally just wipe this stuff on and wipe it off. Also, all this faded out trim works on it as well. On the dash, you can put it on the dash too. Makes it darker on a spot on the hood. Let's do a little spot on the hood where you can see where I dropped it right there. You can see it's kind of chalky right there. You can see where I'm wiping it on. Literally just let it sit there. Then we'll wipe it off with a microfiber in here in about a minute. All right, it's been about a minute. I'm just gonna wipe this off. Super easy. So that scratch is still there, but it's a lot less noticeable. It's a lot shinier. Also on this trim, you can see where I didn't apply it and where I did apply it. Up here on the dash, you can see where I didn't and where I did here on the hood. Literally just wipe it on, wipe it off, and you can see the difference in the cloudy spot and where I put the stuff on. Stuff's super cheap, link down below. So ceramic coating is inherently hydrophobic, and you can see where it beads up. And you can see easily where it beads up and where there's no protection on the paint right there versus where I just done that. So there you go. If you want to save yourself some money and do all the maintenance yourself on your 50 and 200 hour service, it's pretty easy to do, just takes a little bit of time. All the parts, all the oils, filters, and everything I've used in the video will be linked down in the description.